Hello again, my name is Ernest. We know the details now. The ranking on Parliament's Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Inusa Fuseni, has described the recent lock-in of the Office of the Auditor-General as a complete infringement on the independence of the Auditor-General and the setting of a bad precedent for the future. Interacting with Mama Vioso Boaji on the AM show, Mr. Fuseni said deliberate attempts have been made by the Akufo-Addo-led government to stifle the work of the Auditor-General through first to proceed on leave, and the other is subtle, ill-conceived action that could only be construed to be attempts at stopping him from undertaking his constitutional duty as the Auditor-General.
For a president of a country to direct an Auditor-General to take an accumulated leave is wrong. It's wrong by practice, convention, and by the law. Two, the Constitution specifically says that the Auditor-General nobody shall interfere into the performance or functions of the Auditor-General during the performance of those functions. The Auditor-General has not been fired. He's been asked to go on leave. His office is still his office. He can be an acting Auditor-General. But that being so, where an acting Auditor-General is appointed, that Auditor-General acts in his stead until he returns to work. So how come, or where lies the changing of the locks of the office of the Auditor-General? Why should that be changed? Because that is still his office. And so the Auditor-General has not, when he was asked to go on leave, obeyed the president, went on leave, but challenged the decision. I've not read or come across an instance where the Auditor-General has returned to office and thereby compelling his removal, forceful removal from office. So for anybody to go change the locks of the Auditor-General willfully is capricious and very ill-advised.
What's your interpretation of that action?
The interpretation is very clear. The Auditor-General is not wanted. Is not wanted in the office. Whoever has directed the persons to lock the Auditor-General out of his office is sending a clear message to the Auditor-General that he is not wanted. That is the clearest interpretation that you can put on it. Because there is no rule or requirement that requires or stipulates that when the person goes on leave, his office has to be barricaded. There is no rule like that. And for anybody to do that is to act willfully, intentionally, removing the Auditor-General from office.
What can we do to protect that office?
The first thing that we can do to protect that office is what we are doing. Talking about the wanton disregard for law and procedure. That's the first thing we are doing. And that is commendable. Because if we refuse to speak against wrongs perpetuated against public bodies, no matter how the public officer is viewed in the eyes of government, then government will become more dictatorial, more tyrannical, and more arbitrary.
Let's do some more on this. We've been joined by Adam Senanu. He's with the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Adam, thank you very much for your time here on Newsdesk. You, together with 500 others who are part of civil society, started a campaign to get him back, even from his leave, which has become very controversial as to whether or not the president has that authority, or even if it is prudent for him to direct the Auditor-General to go on leave. Now he's been locked out. Your initial reaction to that? Mr. Senanu, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you can hear me. I'm just wondering, just when you have started with your campaign to have Daniel Domelevo resume from his leave, we're now hearing that he's been locked out, and you saw the video that we played to you. What is your reaction to that?
Well, this is very shocking news. In 20 years of democratic governance, this is probably one of the lowest points that this country has experienced. The thinking behind this, we are not quite too sure. We all know that any one of us on leave is able to walk into his office, pick up staff, and especially for an office that is an independent institution of state that the Constitution has made effort to protect and to guard against this kind of interference. It's an embarrassing situation to find ourselves in as Ghanaians. This is not the kind of thing we should be focusing on in an election year. And we think that it's about time that we hear from the president himself. What exactly is going on? What are they trying to achieve? The man has not been legitimately removed from his position. On which basis would anybody go and tamper with his office door? What may they have done in that office, placed in that office? This is absolutely unacceptable.
I'm wondering what your other colleagues on this move are saying, the civil society groups. You held a forum the last time you made a pronouncement. I'm not sure if you presented a petition to the president, but what should we expect from you going forward on this?
Well, as you are aware, we are already exploring the legal routes. There are some of our affiliates in court. Indeed, today, I think there is a case that is supposed to be heard today.
Yes.
Regarding why the Auditor-General should accept to even go on leave in the first place and why the presidency should write such a letter.
Yes, there is a case today.
But
which
beyond that, we will continue to make sure that this issue is not left lying because it has serious consequences for our constitutional arrangements, which we should not allow to continue this way. The president is wrong.
Did you petition the president the last time you spoke about this, and have you received any response from him?
No, we're one of a number of groups that had written to the presidency asking the president to bring back Mr. Domelevo. We've not received a direct response to our appeal to him so far, except that other parties who had written to the president have been written to, and the response suggests that there's not going to be a callback, and we are quite disappointed with that. But it will not stop us from demanding the fact that the action itself we think is illegal, and we think that it's a dangerous precedent. We're on slippery slope here. We need to be very cautious.
What do you say to those who say that he being on leave does not prevent the audit service or the very institution that he heads from undertaking any structural changes, even in his absence, and that perhaps this could be just mischief on his part?
Mischief on whose part?
Daniel Domelevo.
I mean, let's not start spinning stories and creating fallacies. Everybody who goes on leave is entitled to walk through his space, pick up a document, read. I mean, what you're saying that sounds like a spin. I'm not quite sure what that is supposed to suggest. That he is creating trouble by passing by to pick up, if you have any letters, check his email. Come on, let's not stretch this issue to absurdity.
Mr. Senanu, thank you very much for your time here on NewsDesk. We're following up on the case which is in court today, and Joseph Akable will bring us all the details once that case is heard and whatever transpires in court. But we're also joined via Zoom by Mensa Thompson, who is with ASEPA. Thank you very much for your time here on NewsDesk, Mr. Thompson. I'm sure that this has come to your attention. You are noted for taking some actions as far as these issues are concerned. Should we be expecting any from you soon?
Yes, of course. I think it's important that we, members of the civil society fraternity, meet and take immediate action on this particular matter. I mean, I was very shocked yesterday when I saw the video circulating. We've reached out to the Auditor-General, and I think that in the coming days, members of the CSO fraternity will meet and decide what actions. I think it's important that we take a very strong action to avert this deadly precedent that is being set. Otherwise, then we'll have ourselves to blame in future. I mean, as far as the Offices of Accountability of the state is concerned, the Office of the Auditor-General sits on top. And so for the occupant of the Auditor-General's office to be going through such a difficult ordeal, I think it is important that we all stay strong and stand by him in this difficult moment. It's a bit embarrassing. I mean, if you speak to members from the diplomatic community, they've raised a number of concerns about what is happening now. Unfortunately, they cannot speak up so much because last year the president tasked the diplomatic community to stop speaking openly about corruption in his government, and that if they had any issue regarding any of his appointees, they should rather bring it to him instead of talking about it publicly. So you realize that even though the diplomatic community, our development partners, international agencies are not quite happy about what is going on, they can say little about it publicly. But I think with our engagement with them privately, they've shared a number of reservations and concern about what is going on. And I think it's a bit of an international embarrassment for our country, what is going on now.
This in a manner that doesn't escalate and further destroy the relationship that the Auditor General and the support that initially he has even admitted enjoyed from the Akufo-Addo administration. Is there another way to deal with this?
I think the whole issue could have been dealt with a bit more differently. Was it even necessary for the Auditor General to proceed on leave in the first place? Was it necessary that the President and the Auditor General would engage in that public scuffle as they did and back and forth? Was it necessary in the first place? Couldn't the Presidency summon the Auditor General to a meeting and a number of the issues could have been resolved in a private discussion? I mean, I think the whole issue, the way it de-escalated into this particular manner, has created a lot of credibility crisis for us. And I think it is important that if we want to reinforce our image as a country among the Committee of Nations that we're a country that is serious about fighting corruption, then I think we must resolve this impasse immediately as possible. And I think that this whole impasse could be resolved with a meeting between the Office of the President, the Presidency, and the Auditor General, maybe together with a number of civil society organizations, so we can structure a clear path on how to resolve this current impasse so that it doesn't further escalate. Because for the Auditor General to be locked out of his office when he's still Auditor General, I think it's quite a subtle way of saying that, look, you don't occupy this office anymore. And I think that if the Presidency wants to sack the Auditor General, they must do so with some clarity, and so that we can all be bold enough to speak against it, even though the law does not allow them to do, much of what they are doing. But if we are really interested in resolving the impasse, then I think that we can all sit down and resolve these issues without all the necessary brouhaha that is currently happening. I think it is further destroying the image of our country. It is further reducing our fight against corruption. It is further making us worse off as a country as far as the issues of accountability is concerned.
And we're definitely following up this issue from different angles. Of course, there's the court session today, which will bring viewers up to speed on. Thank you very much, Mensa Thompson, for your time here on Newsdesk. Away from the story of the Auditor General,